Welcome to Womb Talk. I'm your host, Elizabeth Vanderwalt, the owner and founder of Fruitful Womb Doula Services. In Womb Talk, we like to go over different topics that are acceptable for all audiences. We're not medical professionals. Everything on this podcast is to educate you so that you can make better choices for your body. If you have a passion for all things women's health, then let's start listening. So today we have the wonderful Carol Lourie, a naturopath, acupuncturist, and homeopath who has been helping women for over 40 years. So please tell us a little bit more about yourself and just how life's going for you in general right now.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be on your platform and share and meet your community. And I have been a naturopathic doctor for over 40 years. I started out working in Berkeley, California with women only, helping women elevate all aspects of their health. And then my specialty began to focus on polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, and then that led into fertility work many years. And then a dear friend of mine was diagnosed with breast cancer and called me up hysterically, appropriately crying. And I said to her in that moment, don't worry, you will not go through this alone. And thus began my 18-month journey, accompanying her to every aspect of her treatment appointments and taking care of her afterwards. And this afforded me a very up close and very personal experience of what it was to be diagnosed with breast cancer. What is it to have a biopsy? What is it to have infusions? How do you go meet with the doctors? And then undergoing radiation and surgery treatments. And I took care of her in between that time. So I really got to see what was being done to the body with these treatments and how to help her maintain a positive mindset, which is not easy. Now, her oncologist was so impressed with her care that I remember the time she said to me, well, I don't know exactly what you're doing with this person, but I want to start referring all my patients to you because I want all of them to be doing that too. So then my practice began to focus on breast cancer, and I developed an online life group coaching program because this material needs to be provided to women throughout not only the US, but Canada and Europe and beyond. It's called Empowered Against Recurrence. But I'm here today to talk about breast cancer and women's health in general. There is a 1 in 8% that you will be diagnosed with breast cancer in your lifetime. And actually, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed. It's up to 13% will be diagnosed. And there are some contributing factors towards this chronic metabolic disease that I think it's very important for women to be aware of. And I like to break it down into the 5 steps that I share with women in my life group coaching program. So the first step is nutrition. The standard American diet literally quadruples the cancer rate.
Oh, wow.
So that is something for us. Just take a breath.
Yeah.
That's a big statistic, ladies. So there are aspects of our lives that we don't have much control over. For example, when you go outside of your home, the air that you breathe, you really don't have control over it outside of your home. But inside your home, you can get air filters and you do have control over what air you breathe inside your home. When you're in your home, you have 100% control over what food you have spent your money on purchasing and bringing into your home. Any food outside of the health food store, and even some of the health food store foods aren't so great, any food that comes in a box, and if you read the label, has these long words on them: citrate, potassium, ascorbate, and then it has red dye number, blah, blah, yellow dye number, whatever. Any dyes, do they come from nature? No. Nature does not need to put dyes in her food. So you're spending your money to have food that is grown in nature. They take that food, they remove all of the live ingredients, they put tastings and flavorings and colorings in it and items to keep it last longer on the shelf. and you're spending your money and you're putting that in your body, and it has saturated fat, is going to lead to inflammation and chronic metabolic disease and potentially heart disease.
Yeah.
The standard American diet quadruples the cancer rate.
It's crazy.
Becoming a really active participant in what you spend your hard-earned money on and what you bring into your home is the first step in empowering your health, whether you're dealing with fertility, or you want healthy pregnancy, or you want your children to be healthy, or you want to be healthy. The second step is supplements. Now, people come to me and they've bought their supplements from CVS or Costco or Amazon, and they like the look of the label. And the problem with that is the majority of supplements are not made to pharmaceutical quality standards. And you want your health to be as optimized as possible. So when you buy a product, you want to make sure that it has a label like this, a barcode. Because if I called that company and I said, here's my barcode number, they would be able to trace every component that is in every capsule in that bottle.
Wow.
That's called pharmaceutical quality standards, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just spending money on something because the label looks good. It's about really knowing which products are made to that. So you're getting the most value for your money. And very importantly, you're not putting toxic items in your body that you think are supposed to be good for you. The third step is your mindset. Now, we are bombarded every day with messages on television about women and how we should look, how we should feel, how we should eat, how we should work. And when I was growing up, every woman looked the same. They were tall, slim, they had the same hair, they had the same skin color. It was quite atrocious. Thank goodness now it's the messaging is a little different as far as our physicality. However, our illness, the messaging around illness is still the same. Let me give an example. There is this one commercial where the house is a mess. It shows a messy house. What does that mean? There are dishes in the sink. The bed isn't made, and there's a pile of laundry.
It's unkept.
Yeah, yeah. So when my child was young, I had dishes in the sink, and sometimes I still do. I have an unmade bed, sometimes I still do. And I have a pile of laundry that needs to be folded, sometimes I still do. What is this commercial for? Antidepressants. So the message is that it's the woman's job. This one, first time I saw this, I got so upset and angry. It's the woman's job to take care of this. Now, if it's a household with two women, it's still the wife's job. And we need to like really be aware of why is that a woman's problem? Why is it that if there are these issues in a home, that means that she's depressed and needs to be on an antidepressant medication? The next image is she's taken the medication and she's serving her family brunch outside. So
Wow.
yeah, the same woman. So if it's a two-woman household, why isn't the other partner helping her by serving? Why isn't she sitting there and be taken care of? Whether that's a woman or a man, it doesn't really matter. Why doesn't somebody come, another person, and help supposedly clean up this quote unquote messy house? This is part of life. There's
Yeah.
deep messagings in here, right?
Yeah, that plays a big role because especially with like in the pregnancy field, right, to postpartum, oftentimes it's like, oh, 6 weeks later, jump back into everything, go to work, do that, right? Like it's just insanity.
I think that's very insanity. I remember what I was like 6 weeks postpartum. My daughter's going to be 30 in a few days.
Oh wow.
Hard to believe. But I was non-functional. I could,
Yeah.
my tasks for the day were to shower, to drink and eat enough, and so I could make enough milk to nurse.
Yeah.
And anytime she was asleep, I was asleep, and the rest, I don't know. My husband, my mom, it didn't get done. I didn't care. I was like, I
Well,
had a home birth and I was older and I had to recover. So, so yeah, sending a woman back to work in 6 weeks is atrocious.
Yeah, or just even like you said with that commercial, just like the whole process of like labeling it as like that's the problem. If it's a messy house, you're probably depressed. That's like when you said that, I was like, huh, the two don't correlate in my head too well.
No, not at all. Um, the third, so mindset is very important,
Yep.
and getting understanding the subtle messages that we get as women. Um, about our health and how we should look and how we should eat and what we should be doing and how we should be relating to our spouses, significant others, and family members is really not based in reality. So it's very important to be able to unravel that string for yourself and figure out what's authentic and true for you. Um, the fourth step is lifestyle. Now, you have 100% control of what you bring into your home. The food you bring in, the air you breathe, filtering your water is critical. Um, if you want to know what is in your water, you can Google the city and the state plus water report, and you will get a list of what's in your water. And for example, now I'm not a radical person, but I don't know what the pharmaceutical company that made fluoride. I don't know how they managed this, but fluoride is in the water of every single city in the US.
Wow.
That people get the same amount, whether you're 12 or 2 or 80. That's number two. Number three, there are no studies done about the long term impact and effects. And it's an unregulated product. So, what did the pharmaceutical company that makes fluoride do that they get to put this in our water without us asking or giving permission? So, I'm a big believer in filtering your water, and there is a really nice water filter that I use. You don't need to have this complicated under the sink. To my community, I send out an email with this, and you always get a discount. And I'm giving out a free gift, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you download that gift, then you'll be on my email list and you'll get these curated products that I support because I know that they work and they're excellent. So all of those come together. And so let's talk about family medical history. If you have a mother or grandmother on either on your maternal side or your paternal side, that have had breast cancer, or a first or second cousin, that is something that you need to pay attention to. It's not just breast cancer, it's also colon cancer and pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
Pancreatic cancer is also what is known as BRCA driven. The breast cancer, the BRCA gene 1 and 2. So if you have that in your family history, you need to be getting, number one, referred to a genetic counselor, which will be covered by your insurance. And number two, a higher level of screening. So, but what does that mean that you can do outside of that? There are natural things you can do to take care of your breast health. Your breast health your breasts aren't just separate from your whole body. Your breasts are part of your whole being. They're a part of your feminine energy. And the health of your breasts is related to how is the health of your period, how is your physical health, how is your emotional health, how healthy are you eating, and are you getting enough movement? It's all interrelated. It's not just a separate thing. So one of the first things that I recommend women do is look at their deodorant.
Yeah.
Now, our underarms right here, like they're right next door to our breasts.
Yeah.
So if you're putting over the counter deodorant on, and I don't want to mention names, but everybody knows some of the brand ones that we're bombarded with. And part of the American advertising is the commercials that we should not smell. And we need to use this body wash. By the way, ladies, body wash is a very toxic product. It has fragrances in it. Fragrances are known as estrogen disruptors. Let's talk about the top 3 toxic products in your home. Body wash, deodorant, top 4, laundry detergent and dryer sheets, and plugins.
Yeah, like those Febreze or like
Yeah,
yeah,
well, plugins that you put in the wall,
for
and
the
then,
smell.
goddess forbid, spray your sofa with that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, let me tell a true story. I had a young woman who was 35 who had quote unquote unexplained infertility. And I actually don't believe in unexplained anything. There's always a reason. And if
Yeah.
the doctor cannot find it, they haven't done the right functional medicine testing, or they haven't talked about maybe your trauma history thoroughly enough. So this young woman had unexplained infertility, and she'd had a lot of testing, and she was heading for $40,000 of IVF. And then she found me. And she came in and she smelled of so much perfume. And I had a scent free office that I said to her, "So tell me about you and scents." And she said, "Oh, I love scents." I said, "What does that mean?" Here we go. Glade plugins, the sticks in the oil. And this was the worst. She sprayed her sofa with Febreze.
Oh Lord.
So as she's telling me that, I'm going, the hair is standing up on the back of my neck. And I said to her, "So do me a favor. When you go home, take every product that you use in your home and on your body, put it on the countertop, and take a photo." So 29 items.
Holy moly. That's a lot.
So she didn't have unexplained infertility. She had, the doctor didn't ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "So here's the deal. You're not going to be able to get pregnant even with IVF if you don't get rid of all this toxic stuff and stop using it." And so here's what she did. She took a week off from work. She had to throw out her sofa because she couldn't detoxify her sofa.
Ooh.
Everything that could be washed, that had been washed in over the counter smelly laundry down that smelly laundry aisle in the supermarket, and then used with a dryer sheet. When you get out of the shower, ladies, and you've put your clothes in a dryer sheet and you wrap the towel around your skin, there are toxic chemicals in the dryer sheet that your skin is absorbing and that get into your body, and they're estrogen disruptors. They lead to polycystic ovarian syndrome, inflammation, infertility, and even potentially cancer. So she spent a week washing everything that could be washed in eco laundry detergent with no dryer sheets. She had her home steam cleaned with organic oils instead of chemicals. She threw out her sofa. She threw out her curtains, and she started over. And then she started on my healing smoothie. You're going to get that recipe. And other supplements. And 3 months later, she was pregnant. She didn't
Wow.
have unexplained infertility. She had toxic overload.
Yeah.
So you've heard me mention the phrase estrogen disruption a couple times. Estrogen is our female hormone, right? And it needs to go through certain chemical pathways in order to be taken and processed and healthfully eliminated from our bodies. But if you have too many chemicals in your system, in your air that you're breathing, in your home, if you're not processing, if your liver is not healthy, and because your liver breaks down these toxic chemicals through something called phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification, if you don't have enough of that healthy pathways, your estrogen goes down an unhealthy pathway. And that unhealthy pathway can lead to inflammation, it can lead to infertility, it can lead to polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it can lead to cancer. And we have tests for this. We can find this out. So this is a metabolic or functional approach to managing your health. So it's not a mystery when something just appears. And there are really some clear and clean and really probably pretty easy steps that you can take to really become an empowered manager of your lovely, beautiful body.
I love that so much. You were mentioning all of those things, and I'm like, oh, thank God my mom doesn't use most of those. Like, we were quickly switched out when we turned teenagers, and that change, I think, really just helps you as women, like you were saying about it being an estrogen like disturbance. I'm like, oh yeah, I agree, I know. And that's the thing, we don't know it all the time. That's not talked about because we are with the mainframe advertising always telling us, oh, we need this product. So I really, really completely agree with you on all of that there. Um, and if you don't mind, like you had mentioned here, we brought up some questions there that we wrote about the mindset and back to the breast cancer a little bit. Like how big of a role do you think that plays in the success of treatment? And like how can we like maybe get into a better mindset? Maybe if you want to talk about that for a minute.
Sure. Mindset in regards to breast cancer treatment, or mindset in regards to just general health?
Oh, I think breast cancer because that's where we were originally starting. I got us off
Um,
topic.
when you were initially diagnosed with breast cancer, one of the first questions I ask women when they come to see me is, when you were initially diagnosed, did you feel the lump yourself, or was it discovered on a routine mammogram? Now, there are women practitioners out there who are saying, don't get a mammogram. It's, get a thermogram instead. And there are other ways to find out if you have a lump. Let me say this about that. Yes, a mammogram does deliver a small amount of radiation. But in life, there is something called the risk versus benefit conversation that we need to have. In my opinion, it is worth getting a mammogram, especially if you have a family history of cancer, versus the risk. And there are ways to protect your body before the exposure to the mammogram and then after. And you can, on my website, Carol Lourie, and my last name is spelled LOURIE.com. I have some free gifts, and also you can reach out to me for further information using the contact me form. But there are definite ways to protect yourself when you get a mammogram. And so 87% of the women that I ask, and I've been doing this for a long time, so that's probably over 1,000 women, say it was discovered on a routine mammogram. They either didn't do breast self exams or they didn't feel it. Now, that's number one. It's always a shock. Nobody volunteers for this. Nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. But remember, 1 in 8. So the risk factors, as I started to say, are you have a family member who has had either breast, ovarian, colon, or pancreatic cancer. That puts you at a higher risk, direct family member. Number 2, you have difficult periods, really severe cramping, and maybe polycystic ovarian syndrome. Dense breasts are an indication in Chinese medicine that there's a lot of stagnation and liver qi, and that can be an example of your body is not detoxifying estrogen properly, and you're going into an unhealthy pathway, and that can lead to an increased risk of breast cancer. Unhealthy eating habits, eating too much processed food, saturated fats, lack of movement, all of these add up. There isn't one thing that causes breast cancer, and there's not one approach to treatment for this. It takes as I said, the 5 steps. So in regards to mindset, when you're initially diagnosed, the medical oncology world acts like it's a medical emergency and you have to have a biopsy today or tomorrow, or we're scheduling you right away. And then the next thing you know, they want to do their treatment. So unless there is a huge tumor pressing on a vital organ, which is almost never the case, this is not a medical emergency. You absolutely do want to get that biopsy scheduled, but you can say to them, I'm going to call back. What's the number? You don't have to be pushed into having a biopsy today or tomorrow. That's not necessarily indicated in your best interest. Getting your care team together is really a good idea. And what does that mean? Your medical oncology team is expert in treating the tumor. But people like me, we are expert in keeping you as healthy as possible. through treatment, during treatment, and after treatment. So we have plans for your health and wellness, and we have protocols for that. And you, ideally, you want the best of both worlds. You want your medical oncology team to help you have a path that is your best path forward for treatment. And you want an integrative holistic practitioner who can help you sort through. All of a sudden, you're plopped into this world of medical terminology, which most people don't have expertise for. It's sort of like if you ask me to fix a computer or the inside of a watch or do brain surgery, I would not have a clue. But you're expected to understand these big words and these different forms of treatments. And in my work, I have helped women avoid, for example, whole breast radiation. There's a lot of research that says whole breast radiation is not necessarily better than partial breast radiation, number one, if you're even doing radiation at all. Number two, there's too much of a push towards mastectomies. And the research about outcome, which is long-term life. Now, it's very difficult because there's no one type of breast cancer. Every breast cancer is a little different. But the benefit of mastectomy in general is not necessarily, depending on what we're dealing with, in your best interest to having a tumor removed through a lumpectomy. But sometimes the surgeon will say it'll be easier for me. It's not about easier for the surgeon. It's about what is in the woman's best interest and what does she want. So, yeah. So mindset. It's very difficult to go through this alone because you're plopped into this world of that you know nothing about, and they're pressuring you to make these decisions, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And it's a lot to get it. It's like you're getting your PhD in breast cancer management in a day or a week. It's a lot.
Yeah. I love it. You, not to come off frank with a new term here, but you almost sound like the doula of breast cancer.
No, yeah,
you're like providing that support. You're providing, because like as doulas, I'm sure you know about our role a little bit, like that educational.
Yes, I actually help deliver babies at home. I love doulas. It's wonderful.
Perfect. Well, that you're just sitting here, you're telling me, and then especially in the beginning with the story about your friend there with the breast cancer, like that resonates as doula almost, like the support you're giving, the emotional, physical, informational, like that's all right there. And I mean, you're on steroids because you're a naturopath, homeopath, and an acupuncturist. So you've got a lot of skills on top of that support side. But I just love it. You're doing very great work. It's needed because, like you said, they bombard you, and that happens at birth. That happens almost, I would say, in almost any medical type of emergency that you have out there. That, you know, they push you because they know their stuff in a certain way, but then they expect you to just like, here, know it. And like you said, you're not a computer technician and know how to fix that.
No, it's, I think being smart is about knowing our limitations. Yes. And I'm not a tech person. I have an online business. I hire tech out.
Good.
And I found somebody who really is good at it and pays attention and is there for me. You know, I'm not a doula. I had a doula attend my birth, and I was very glad that she was there. Ladies, understand that you don't need to do it at all yourself, and find somebody that you resonate with that is an expert in that area. So if you have dense breasts, if you're having horrible periods, if you're maybe you're beginning to start menopause early, if you go to your regular medical doctor, with all due respect, they'll maybe put you on the birth control pill. Maybe that is your best bet, but maybe not. So it is always a good idea to reach out, even for a few private sessions, to somebody such as myself who can really guide you. Well, maybe you don't want to do that right now. Maybe let's help clean up your diet and talk about doing some power walks a couple times a week, or Pilates, or joining the free gym, or doing finding somebody on YouTube that doesn't cost any money, who you can be at home in your pajamas and do your weightlifting, which is sort of what I do. And let's put you on some supplements that are going to help support your liver and open up your phase 1 and phase 2 detox pathways, so that your estrogen is being processed in a healthier fashion.
I love that. And you mentioned you had an online business. So, like, can anybody in all the world work with you?
That's the
Like,
beauty. Yes, that's the beauty. I've had women in Australia and New Zealand and France. The only limiting factor is they have to speak English
yeah, I
because
get
I
that.
speak a few languages, and my Philadelphia accent makes my language, other language than English accent, so funny
Oh,
that
okay.
everybody just hears me say one thing and says, let's speak in English. So I
I love
encourage
that.
people, no matter where you are in the world, I'm happy to work with you. Just know that if I try to speak your language, you'll be hysterically laughing, and let's just do English.
Now you're making me so curious. After this, you have to share it with me. But how can they reach out to you? I know you mentioned your website. You also mentioned you had something free that you wanted to share. So, of
Right.
course,
Well,
we'll put the links in the description. But tell us about it a little bit.
sure. I have a proprietary combination of ingredients called the Healing Smoothie. And the link that you're getting for the free gift, it talks about breast cancer, but it's not just about cancer, it's about women's health. And wherever you are in your journey of health and life and wellness, the ingredients in here are appropriate for you. There's a pea isolate protein powder or a whey powder. There's quercetin ascorbate powder, which is one of the most powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents in nature. It comes from the inside of a lining of an apple and some other fruits. There is a D-ribose powder, which provides energy to the mitochondria, which is where the powerhouses of your cells. And then there's chia and flax seeds. And we all know flax seeds have omega essential fatty acids, and the chia seeds are bulking agents, so you eliminate or easy. There's a greens powder. There's a handful of parsley if you want, or other greens. And then there's blueberries or blackberries. It tastes good.
Oh,
And it can be a meal replacement or it can be a snack. I make mine every morning. I drink half in the morning and the other half around 4 o'clock when I tend to get hungry before dinner. And you can make it in the morning and stick it in, one of these things and drink it in the car on your way to work or whatever. It's delicious, and it provides you with protein and nutrients. So that is my free gift to you. Now, the easiest way to reach me is through my website. Um, it's my name, Carol, Carol, and then Lourie, Lourie.com. There's a contact me section at the top, and just send me an email, and I respond personally to every email I get.
that's wonderful. We'll put those links in the description below for everybody. But I do have always one like sneaky last question I always ask
Oh,
people,
good.
which is if you could give one tip or advice to women, and it could be about anything, doesn't have to be breast cancer, just anything you'd like, what would it be? What one tip would you give to everybody?
To love yourself more.
I love that.
Um, I think that we are all raised with this negative, nonstop voice in our brains, which is why when women start to meditate, it's very painful and it's not possible. So, we have this image of we have to meditate with our eyes closed and sit there and be all serious. That doesn't work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, what's important to calm your nervous system? There's these apps. There's the Calm app. You can find somebody that you like who has a soothing voice on YouTube. You don't need to sit there and torture yourself, because what happens when you stop is your brain is going, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and you didn't do this right, and you didn't do that right. It's enough to drive you crazy. So, I think that we all need to pat ourselves on the shoulders and tell ourselves we're doing a good job more often than we do. Perfectionism is overrated and just makes us feel badly. And you and I were talking about that a little bit before we started our
Yeah.
interview. We all do. I had a woman write down to me for me and for herself every single thing she does from the minute she wakes up until she gets herself and the kids out the door. There were like 50 things in a period of 2 hours, and she was still thinking she wasn't doing enough. So this is part of the energy of our society and what we're raised with, and it's not doing us any good emotionally or physically, because that stress that leads to inflammation, that internal stress leads to inflammation, leads to not happy cells, leads to disease. So we're all very complex. And if you find yourself in a negative space, which we all do every now and then, it's very hard not to, just know that that's a moment that you need to just stop and go take a nap or take a hot bath and ask for help.
Yeah.
We all need people, spouses, partners, best friends that we can call up and say, I'm having a really hard day. Can you take the kids? Or I don't know what to do for dinner. I mean, you can get into a dinner group with 2 or 3 women and people cook. It's really easy to make food for yourself and triple the recipe, and then everybody shares. So, wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to cook 7 days a week, or if your partner could take over?
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy that, like you said about the lady with 50 things, you don't notice it, really. You just think,
Well,
oh, that
yes.
wasn't that important or that doesn't count as a
Yeah,
thing,
that
right?
doesn't
But
matter. Not
yeah.
important, right?
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. I love it. I love it a
Thank
lot.
you.
So I'm so very glad you came and you have so much information. I feel like you got to come back and like do a whole nother one.
Anytime. Anytime. I love supporting women. That's
Yeah.
my task in life in all forms. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And everybody listening, come back for more. We keep having them every Monday.